Welcome back to my channel, dear friends. Today, we're diving into the spine-chilling world of the top 10 most haunted places in the USA. So, grab a seat, relax, and get ready to uncover some seriously eerie stories. But beware, you might just discover one of these haunted spots is closer to home than you think. Let's get started. St. Augustine Lighthouse, Florida. Built in 1874, the St. Augustine Lighthouse is a marvel of engineering, standing 165 feet tall. But long before its current structure rose, an earlier lighthouse, constructed in 1824, succumbed to the merciless tides of erosion. Yet, its ghostly presence lingers, entwined with the stories of those who lived and died here. One of the most tragic tales involves three young daughters of Hezekiah Pittee, the foreman overseeing construction in the 1870s. While playing on a work cart, the children lost control, and the cart plunged into the ocean's unforgiving embrace. Two sisters, Mary and Eliza, along with a family friend, drowned. Their laughter is said to echo in the halls even now, a haunting reminder of innocence lost. The St. Augustine Lighthouse has earned its place as one of the most haunted locations in America. Guests and workers alike report unshakable sensations of being watched, mysterious footsteps echoing through empty stairwells, and shadowy figures lurking just out of reach. But the lighthouse keeper's quarters tell a darker story of isolation and madness. These rooms, once filled with warmth and family life, now radiate unease. A frequent visitor of these quarters shared her chilling experience. "I was standing in the kitchen when I felt a hand brush my shoulder. I turned around, but no one was there. Moments later, the door slammed shut behind me, though no wind could have caused it." Could these be the spirits of past keepers, forever bound to their post? Or perhaps something far more malevolent is at play? Visitors brave enough to climb the 219 steps to the top often report an unnerving sensation, as if someone is right behind them. But upon turning, they find only the empty spiral of the staircase descending into darkness. For years, ghost hunters have flocked to the St. Augustine Lighthouse, armed with tools to prove the existence of the otherworldly. From disembodied voices caught on EVP recorders to thermal images of figures where no one should be, the evidence is chilling, but with every piece of evidence comes a question. What keeps these spirits tethered here? Is it unfinished business, a tragic end, or something far darker? The St. Augustine Lighthouse stands as a beacon, not just for ships but for stories. Stories of love, loss, and lingering spirits. Its walls hold secrets that refuse to be silenced, and its grounds remain a playground for the unseen. So, if you ever find yourself in St. Augustine, take a trip to this towering relic of history. Climb its steps, feel the air grow heavy, and maybe, just maybe, you'll encounter the spirits of the past waiting for someone brave enough to listen. Salem, Massachusetts. Salem, Massachusetts. A town cloaked in history, mystery, and malevolence. The site of the infamous witch trials. But what lies beneath the surface of this quaint New England town? Tonight, we uncover the darkness that still lingers. Salem. The name alone stirs images of witches, accusations, and untimely deaths. But what if the spirits of the condemned never truly left? What if Salem's past isn't just history, but a haunting reality? In 1692, Salem became the epicenter of one of the most infamous mass hysterias in history. Over 200 people were accused of practicing witchcraft. 20 were executed, 19 by hanging, and one, Giles Corey, pressed to death with heavy stones. The fear of the devil's influence gripped the town like a vice, leaving a permanent stain on its legacy. But what many don't realize is that Salem's dark history isn't confined to the past. Residents and visitors alike report strange phenomena, shadowy figures, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being watched. Could it be the restless spirits of the wrongly condemned? This is the old Burying Point Cemetery, one of the oldest graveyards in the country. Buried here are many who lived through the witch trials, including Judge John Hathorne, the notorious hanging judge. They say the ground here is tainted by the sorrow and anger of those wrongfully accused. Visitors report chilling experiences, footsteps that follow them, whispers in the darkness, and cold spots that seem to defy explanation. One woman claimed to see the apparition of a young girl in colonial dress, her face pale and tear-streaked, standing by a gravestone. When she blinked, the girl was gone. This ominous structure is known as the Witch House, the former home of Judge Jonathan Corwin, who presided over the trials. It's said to be one of the most haunted locations in Salem. Standing here, you can almost feel the weight of history. And something else. Guides have reported objects moving on their own, doors slamming, and the faint sound of children's laughter echoing through the halls. Could it be the spirits of the children who lost their parents to the trials, still searching for comfort? Why does Salem remain so haunted? Some say it's the residual energy of the trials, a scar on the spiritual fabric of the town. Others believe the land itself is cursed, forever tied to the suffering endured here. Whatever the cause, one thing is certain: Salem's past is very much alive. And for those who dare to explore its darker corners, the question isn't whether the spirits are real, but whether they're watching you. Gettysburg Battlefield, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. They call Gettysburg one of the most haunted places in America, a battlefield soaked in blood, where over 50,000 soldiers met their end during 3 fateful days in July 1863. The soil here holds the weight of unimaginable suffering, and some say the dead never left. Gettysburg was not just a turning point in the Civil War. It became a gateway between the living and the dead. For over a century, visitors and locals have reported chilling encounters, shadowy figures, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being watched. Tonight, we dive into the horrifying secrets of Gettysburg and the spirits that refuse to rest. Our journey begins at Devil's Den, a cluster of massive boulders where some of the fiercest fighting took place. Over 1,800 men lost their lives here, their blood seeping into the cracks of these ancient stones. Many have reported strange phenomena here: spectral soldiers appearing and vanishing, cameras malfunctioning, and the eerie sensation of unseen eyes. One tale stands out: the story of a barefoot soldier. Visitors claim to have encountered this phantom, always pointing as if to guide them, but to where no one knows. Just beyond the battlefield lies the Farnsworth House Inn, a former Confederate stronghold. With over 14 documented spirits, this inn is a hotbed of paranormal activity. Guests have reported ghostly children playing pranks, the sound of heavy boots pacing the halls, and even being touched or whispered to in the dead of night. The basement is the most active area. During one investigation, our equipment picked up a voice, clear as day, saying, "Leave now." It felt like a warning, and honestly, we didn't stick around to find out what it meant. Few places in Gettysburg are as tragic as the Gettysburg Orphanage. Originally a refuge for children left parentless by the war, it became a house of horrors under the cruel matronship of Rosa Carmichael. Rosa's reign of terror left scars on this building, and perhaps on its very soul. Visitors have heard the cries of children and seen small handprints appear on dusty windows. Some say Rosa's oppressive spirit still lingers, punishing anyone who dares disturb her domain. Perhaps the most chilling story of Gettysburg is that of the Phantom Regiment. Witnesses have reported seeing entire battalions of soldiers marching silently across the fields. Were these soldiers replaying their final moments? Or is the battlefield itself replaying the horrors etched into its history? Jenny Wade, the only civilian killed during the Battle of Gettysburg, met her tragic end while baking bread for Union soldiers. A stray bullet pierced her home, ending her life instantly. Her spirit is said to linger here, tied to the moment of her death. Visitors have reported smelling freshly baked bread, hearing soft weeping, and even feeling a gentle touch on their shoulders. Gettysburg is more than a historical site. It is a place where the veil between worlds is perilously thin. Those who visit often leave with more questions than answers, and some with memories they'd rather forget.
The Dark Secrets of Bloodwater Marsh. Cult rituals in Louisiana's haunted swamp. Deep in the heart of Louisiana lies a place shrouded in mystery and dread. Bloodwater Marsh, a land as cursed as its name suggests. Known for its murky waters and haunting silence, it's said to be home to something far more sinister than just ghost stories. Tonight, we delve into the horrifying legacy of the cult rituals that stained this marsh with blood and fear. The origins of the cult remain murky, much like the swamp itself. Local legends speak of a group known as the Children of the Blood Moon. They were a secretive, sinister sect that emerged in the late 1800s, believed to worship an ancient, malevolent entity said to dwell beneath the swamp's waters. The Children of the Blood Moon were unlike any other cults of their time. Their rituals were rooted in a disturbing mix of voodoo, paganism, and ancient folklore passed down by the earliest settlers. The swamp became their sacred ground, and their rites often involved blood sacrifices, both animal and human. Locals whispered of strange sights and sounds emanating from the marsh during full moons, flickering firelight, chanting that would make the hair on your neck stand on end, and shadowy figures moving through the water. But it wasn't until the disappearance of several townsfolk that the true horror of the cult's activities came to light. Between 1891 and 1895, at least 14 people vanished without a trace. Search parties ventured into the marsh but often returned empty-handed. Some spoke of hearing cries for help that seemed to come from nowhere, or glimpsing strange lights that lured them deeper into the swamp. Few dared to investigate further. Survivors, if you can call them that, tell of brutal ceremonies meant to summon the swamp's dark god. Rituals involving the spilling of blood, the burning of bones, and the chanting of unholy invocations in a forgotten tongue. The cult was eventually wiped out after a vigilante mob stormed the marsh in 1895. But their legacy lingers. Some believe the marsh is cursed, forever tainted by the blood spilled in its waters. Others claim the cult's deity still hungers, and that anyone who ventures too deep into Bloodwater Marsh risks becoming its next victim. The Stanley Hotel, Estes Park, Colorado. Nestled in the serene yet shadowy Rocky Mountains of Colorado, the Stanley Hotel looks like something out of a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. But behind its picturesque facade lies a history drenched in mystery, terror, and the echoes of the past that refuse to fade away. In 1909, entrepreneur freelance Oscar Stanley built this grand hotel as a luxurious retreat for the wealthy. It was meant to be a beacon of opulence, a haven far removed from the bustling chaos of city life. But little did Stanley know, his creation would become a magnet for something else entirely, something otherworldly. From unexplained apparitions to ghostly laughter echoing through empty halls, the Stanley Hotel has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted locations in America. But where do these hauntings come from? And who or what still lingers here? Let's start with one of the most infamous areas of the Stanley Hotel, the fourth floor. Guests staying in room 401 have reported the feeling of being watched, their belongings mysteriously moved, and even the sensation of an invisible hand touching their shoulders. Could it be the spirit of Lord Dunraven, the land's original owner, who reportedly haunts this space? And then there's room 217, the most legendary room of them all. In 1911, housekeeper Elizabeth Wilson nearly lost her life here in a gas explosion. Guests claim her spirit is still present, folding clothes, turning lights on and off, and tucking visitors into bed. Yes, you heard that right, tucked into bed by a ghost. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, one thing is certain. The Stanley Hotel holds secrets that time cannot erase. Its beauty hides a darkness that beckons thrill seekers and skeptics alike. But remember, when you check in, you may not be alone. After all, some guests never leave.
Death Knell Dairy, Wisconsin's forgotten farm of terror. In the 1930s, Death Knell Dairy was owned by the Grayson family, a hard-working yet eccentric group who were well known in their tiny rural community. Their prize-winning cows were the envy of the region, and their dairy products were rumored to be unusually rich and creamy, almost too perfect. But as the years passed, unsettling stories began to spread. Locals whispered that the Graysons were hiding something dark on their land, something evil, Farmers who visited their property reported hearing disembodied whispers from the fields and a peculiar, haunting bell that seemed to ring from nowhere. In the winter of 1942, the entire Grayson family vanished overnight. No signs of a struggle. No note. The farm was found eerily intact, with the livestock still in their pens. But the Graysons were gone, leaving behind a single bizarre clue: a brass bell hanging from the barn door, smeared with fresh blood. The locals believed this was no ordinary disappearance. Some claimed the family had been dragged into the earth by vengeful spirits. Others insisted they had struck a bargain with dark forces, and the tolling bell was their payment coming due. Over the decades, the land changed hands several times, but no one stayed long. Tragedy followed every new owner. Farmers reported their cows producing blood instead of milk. Entire herds were found dead, their eyes missing, their bodies grotesquely twisted. And always, that infernal bell would ring in the dead of night. In 1977, the farm was abandoned for good. The last owner, a man named Richard Tate, was found hanging from the bell rope in the barn. His suicide note read only one word: run. In recent years, the Death Knell Dairy has become a magnet for paranormal investigators and thrill seekers. Visitors report hearing the bell ringing despite no visible source. Shadowy figures moving between the trees and the overpowering stench of decay. Some even claim to have seen spectral cows, their hollow eyes glowing red in the darkness. Was the Grayson family cursed? Did they dabble in the occult to ensure their dairy's success, only to pay the ultimate price? Or is the Death Knell Dairy simply a tragic tale warped by decades of superstition?
The Winchester Mystery House, California, USA. Our story begins in the late 1800s with Sarah Winchester, widow of William Wirt Winchester, heir to the Winchester repeating arms fortune. After the sudden deaths of her infant daughter and husband, Sarah sought solace from a medium, but what she heard would drive her to a lifetime of construction and torment. The medium claimed that Sarah's family was cursed, haunted by the vengeful spirits of those killed by the Winchester rifle. To escape them, Sarah was told she must build, continuously, a house that would confuse the spirits and give them no rest. And so, in 1886, Sarah purchased an 8-room farmhouse in San Jose, California, and began expanding it into the sprawling, mind-bending mansion we see today. For 38 years, construction never ceased. Day and night, workers hammered, sawed, and built at her command. But the result was far from ordinary. The Winchester Mystery House became a maze of over 160 rooms, with secret passageways, twisting corridors, and design elements that defied logic. Stairs led to dead ends, doors opened to sheer drops, and windows overlooked other rooms. Was this chaotic design a desperate attempt to evade the spirits? Or was Sarah's mind unraveling under the weight of her grief and guilt? Visitors to the house report more than just architectural oddities. Many claim it is a portal to the supernatural. Staff and tourists alike have heard disembodied footsteps echoing through the halls. Others have felt icy hands graze their shoulders. And then there are those who swear they've seen Sarah herself. A ghostly figure roaming the halls, still building, still searching for peace. But perhaps the most chilling mystery of all lies in the house's infamous seance room. A small, claustrophobic space where Sarah supposedly communed with the spirits, seeking guidance on her endless construction. To this day, the room remains a focal point for paranormal activity, with visitors reporting inexplicable cold spots and strange, otherworldly whispers. In 1922, Sarah Winchester passed away in her sleep. Construction on the house stopped immediately, but the questions and the hauntings remain. Was she a victim of grief, preyed upon by charlatans and her own guilt? Or was she truly tormented by the spirits of the slain? The Winchester Mystery House stands today as a chilling testament to one woman's obsession and the secrets she took to her grave. A place where the line between the living and the dead is blurred, and where every creak of the floorboards might just be a spirit, still wandering its endless halls. The LaLaurie Mansion, New Orleans, USA. The story begins in 1831, when the elegant and ambitious Madame Delphine LaLaurie, along with her third husband, Dr. Louis LaLaurie, moved into this grand mansion on Royal Street. From the outside, their home was the epitome of refinement. Lavish parties, dazzling chandeliers, and the finest guests graced their halls. But behind closed doors, rumors began to swirl of something far darker. In a time when slavery was a grim reality in the South, even by those horrific standards, whispers of Madame LaLaurie's cruelty toward her enslaved servants spread like wildfire. Some called her eccentric, others a monster. April 10, 1834. Smoke poured from the LaLaurie mansion as a fire broke out in the kitchen. When authorities arrived, they discovered the unimaginable. An elderly enslaved woman, chained to the stove, admitted to starting the fire in a desperate attempt to escape the torment within these walls. What they uncovered was a house of horrors. Men and women mutilated beyond recognition, their bodies twisted in grotesque ways. Some were locked in cages, others suspended by iron collars, and still others subjected to medical experiments so unspeakable they defy comprehension. The public was outraged. A mob descended on the mansion, intent on revenge. The LaLauries fled into the night, never to return. But their legacy of terror lingers within these walls. Today, the LaLaurie Mansion is considered one of the most haunted locations in America. Visitors and workers alike have reported disembodied screams, the clinking of chains, and the eerie feeling of being watched. The Myrtles Plantation, USA. In the heart of Louisiana, nestled in the small town of St. Francisville, lies a house with a dark history. A place that has seen centuries of death, betrayal, and ghostly terror. This is the Myrtles Plantation, also known as the most haunted house in America. But what truly haunts this plantation isn't just the history. It's the blood-stained past that continues to torment the living to this day. Built in 1796 by General David Bradford, the Myrtles Plantation was once a grand, beautiful estate, a symbol of wealth and power in the South. But beneath its stunning exterior, there was a secret stained in blood. It is said that the spirits of those who died here never left. And as the years passed, they left their marks. Screams heard in the dead of night, cold spots that freeze the air, and strange figures that appear where none should be. But the most chilling part? The true horrors began with the story of a woman named Chloe. Chloe was a slave who worked on the plantation. She was not born into the life of servitude, but like so many, her fate was sealed by the cruelty of the wealthy plantation owners. But Chloe wasn't just a simple servant. She had a secret, an affair with the plantation owner, Clark Woodruff. He was a man with a reputation, but Chloe's love for him would become her curse. It's said that in a desperate bid to maintain his affections, Chloe poisoned his wife, Sarah, and their 2 children. They died in agony, writhing in their own poisoned blood. But Chloe's plan backfired. Clark Woodruff had her punished, stripped of her dignity, mutilated, and left to die in the dark woods surrounding the plantation. Chloe's spirit, trapped by her guilt and the horror of her own deeds, is said to still haunt the plantation. Her ghostly figure has been seen wandering the halls, her mournful cries echoing through the rooms where death took place. But Chloe isn't the only one who walks the halls. The plantation has become a hotbed for paranormal activity. Guests who stay in the rooms are often subjected to disturbing encounters. Cold hands brushing against their skin, footsteps echoing when no one is there, and the unmistakable sound of children laughing in the distance. But there's one entity that has terrified visitors for generations: the spirit of the little girl. It's believed that the spirit of a little girl, who drowned in the plantation's fountain, now haunts the grounds. Visitors report seeing her face in windows, her tiny handprints smeared on the glass. Some even claim to hear her whispering their name, calling them to the water's edge, only for them to disappear, vanishing without a trace. The Myrtles Plantation is more than just a haunted house. It's a place where the past refuses to stay buried, where the dead continue to reach out to the living. From the vengeful spirit of Chloe to the innocent ghost of a little girl, the darkness of this plantation has seeped into the land itself. The Queen Mary Hotel. Welcome aboard the RMS Queen Mary, once a luxury ocean liner, now one of the most haunted places in the world. From wartime tragedy to ghostly encounters, this historic ship in Long Beach, California, has a story to tell. But beware, not all its passengers have left. The Queen Mary first set sail in 1936, a majestic vessel of elegance and power. For years, it was the pinnacle of luxury, carrying celebrities, royalty, and dignitaries across the Atlantic. But the ship's fate changed during World War II, when it was converted into a troop ship and dubbed the Grey Ghost. Over 800,000 troops were transported, and her decks saw countless moments of joy, sorrow, and even death. After the war, she resumed her role as a passenger liner until her retirement in 1967, when she was permanently docked here in Long Beach. But some say she never stopped moving, at least not in the spiritual realm. His is the first-class pool, once a place of laughter and elegance. But now, it's eerily silent, except, of course, for the phantom footsteps, the sudden splashes, and the chilling presence of Jackie, a little girl who supposedly drowned here. Visitors claim to hear her giggling or calling out for her mother, even though the pool has been dry for decades. And then there's the engine room, a labyrinth of pipes and shadows. In 1966, an 18-year-old crew member named John Petter was tragically crushed by a watertight door during a drill. They say his ghost still lingers, with some guests reporting cold drafts, disembodied whispers, and even the sensation of being watched. Finally, we come to stateroom B340, perhaps the most haunted place on the ship. So haunted, in fact, that it was closed to the public for years. Guests who stayed here reported bedding being ripped off them, faucets turning on by themselves, and sinister apparitions standing at the foot of their beds. The Queen Mary reopened the room in 2018, but only for those brave enough to spend a night inside. The Queen Mary is more than a ship. It's a vessel of memories, some beautiful, some tragic, and some terrifying. If you ever decide to visit, remember, you may not be alone. And if you're bold enough to spend the night, well, let's hope you make it till dawn.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of USA's darkness. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more chilling tales. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe,